Look, up in the sky, it's a bird.
It's a plane!
Nope. It's another Superman game that probably sucks. It is widely known across the interwebs that there are actually no good Superman games. I mean, there aren't many of them to begin with, which is a true mystery in the gaming community. Why don't we have more Superman games? Is it really that hard to make? Was what they did with the Batman Arkham series not a good enough example of success for comic book games? Is there simply no interest? Well, if they think that last one, I want to call BS. I mean, Superman isn't necessarily my favorite. I don't find him to be as a deep character as like a Batman per se. He's inherently good and he don't really lie and he tries to save everyone. That's really all there is to him. But even with me thinking that, if they were to announce a brand new Superman open world game, I'd be very, very, very excited. Because his powers and abilities just translate into gaming so well. He can fly, he's strong as shit, he got icy breath, laser eyes, he's faster than a speeding bullet, and his only weaknesses are a green pebble and simping for a girl who's so self-centered she gets fooled by a pair of glasses. Why do you think it's so cool now to make Superman bad guys? Because if Superman was actually evil, that'd be scary as shit. On top of that, we haven't seen many of his villains in that form either. Zod would be a very fun villain to battle against. You want to get extra cool, maybe have a side mission thing going along with Lobo. Do you want to get super crazy? Let's throw Hitler in the mix. Let's kick his ass. That'd be super fun. Sadly, that is all in my imagination. And we're stuck in the real world where we only have these sucky games. Or so they say they suck. I actually never played a single Superman game before. And all this Superman talk got me feeling a bit brave. Oof, maybe not that brave. I don't think I have the mental capacity to tackle that one today. Maybe some other time. So, join me as I take a look at the two PS2 Superman games. Superman Shadow of Apokolips. That's Apokolips spelled with a K and with lips as in from your face. Based on the Superman the Animated Series, Lex Luthor and Darkseid team up together to command powerful robots infused with Apokolips technology strong enough to hurt Superman. Once he figures out where they're coming from, he sets out to destroy the robots and their weapons. But Luthor digs into his pockets to hire a handful of villains to get in Superman's way. This game is basic as hell and has a very by-the-numbers story. It feels like something big is always brewing in the background, but it actually never shows up. Kind of like your dad on the weekends. I think what held up the most 20 plus years later, oddly enough, were the graphics. Maybe not the graphics per se, but the art style and the design that the game has. I thought the game looked pretty good at times. It looked like a 3D version of the show. I say at times because of the environments, they feel very empty. The city looks very bland. The water looks like cardboard and lights like on a Disneyland dark ride. But the character models are actually pretty great. They look exactly like they do on the show, if not pretty close to it. And the cutscenes aren't too shabby either. One thing that did have me tripping were Superman's chonies. Don't worry about why I was looking there. But they're black. And that looked odd to me. I thought they were always red. And I googled it and this IMDb picture of the series popped up. And he's in red chonies. But I think that this picture is actually wrong because the stills from the actual show have him in black chonies. Or maybe it's like super dark red that it looks black because it also has these red stripes on the side. I'm not sure. But for anyone else that cared about the authenticity of his chonies, can rest easy knowing that Superman Shadow of the Apokolips actually got Superman's chonies right. So other than his chonies, I really did like his design. He's super blocky and wide and he's got these teeny tiny Bella Ramsey eyes. So you copy and paste the design from the show and you add the OG voice actors and it really feels like you're playing the show. What's more nostalgic for 30-year-olds than Saturday morning cartoons?
Strange that LexCorp hasn't lost any scientists, isn't it?
Agreed, considering that Luthor has some of the best minds on the planet working for him. You never did tell me how you got those Lex Lab passes.
First rule of journalism, Smallville. A reporter never reveals her sources.
Something else that was really good was the music. It's immediately recognizable as something from Superman and really enhances what's going on screen. So it looks and sounds great, but how does it play? Well, honestly, not the worst thing ever. Flying is not horrible. It's actually pretty responsive. You can hover, and with the right stick you can do a couple maneuvers like roll to the side and do a barrel roll. The sense of speed isn't actually the worst either. It does need to be cranked up a little bit. You can go speeding bullet speed, but you end up sacrificing control just a little bit, not enough to make it completely unflyable. But yeah, the flying was actually pretty fun. You have basic melee attacks, so basic that it loves going to go get Froyo after brunch. You can't charge for extra damage or anything like that. All you do is just punch and do these type of combos. You can fly into things and also do a ground slam. You do get 3 special attacks. You have your cool minty breath where you can push things around. You can shoot lasers out of your face, which is pretty cool. And you can do this super spinny thing like those Sky Dancer toys from the 90s.
The power to fly!
Wow, dragonflies really fly!
I think I like shooting the lasers the most because you can shoot it from far away. But the combat as a whole is definitely lacking more variety. You can also pick things up, usually to like plug it in for mission's sake. There's also bats you can use, which are okay, but it can be a bit of a pain in the ass because you really have to be in the right position to be able to pick these kind of things up. And if you're not careful, you can get stuck for some random reason. I think because the item was too big or something, I don't know, I just end up freezing here. Maybe I breathed on myself, I don't know. Allegedly, there are these shields you can collect, which is the only collectible in the game, but either they're hidden way too well or I just simply didn't care enough to find them. Honestly, it might have been a combination of both. So when you start the game, you're in this tutorial level, which gave me the feeling that this game was going to be open world because they really open up Metropolis for you to fly around and do the tutorial. But the game is very much not open world. Instead, it comes by missions. You might have to save people in this one mission or try to get rid of all the enemies, connect things, destroy things, fix and solve things. There's actually quite some thought and design into each chapter, so at least you are doing different things mission to mission, which I appreciate. So they at least don't have you doing the same type of shit over and over and over and over and over and over and there's even some Clark Kent stealth missions. Some missions are kind of goofy and don't make a whole lot of sense, like this room full of mines. You're supposed to like blow them away to make a path for yourself to get the door, but it's also like, you're Superman. There's nobody in this room. Just fly over the mines. But the missions that annoyed me the most were any mission involving a time limit. It is so annoying. Time missions for me are the worst thing about gaming. And they were huge in the early 2000s. I felt like damn near every game had one. My thing is, why are you rushing me, game? What's so damn important that you need me to do it this goddamn second?
Superman, you've got to get the pins back in at all costs.
I need to push the pins back, and quickly.
Okay, I guess that one does make sense. Well, if it was so damn important, get it? Maybe don't have a glitch on that part. I was pressing X so much I thought I was gonna pass out. I don't know exactly what happened, but something glitched to where I was pressing X like crazy and it wasn't budging. He wasn't doing anything. But yeah, time missions suck. Other missions don't even need to have time limit in the first place. Yeah, if there's a countdown before everything blows to hell, sure. But walking through strong winds don't need a time limit. This wind thing was also really dumb, because it just says press X. So I did, and I kept failing over and over and over again. I was pressing X so damn fast and hard I felt like I was going to end up with a Quagmire arm. I thought to myself, how the hell is this a kid's game? Well, it turns out I was also supposed to press the joystick to walk towards the wind, so I guess it was my bad. But it just says press X, so I did. Okay, game, chalk that one up for me being stupid. This game's over 20 years old. Why am I so pissed? So, outside of a couple unclear instructions, the game is actually not the worst thing ever. Surprisingly enough, gameplay-wise, as goofy as it looks, the flying really might be the best thing that works and feels the best, even though it literally looks like I'm playing with my feet. That's the only thing that deserves a gold star. There are a few bosses here and there. The stages where these take place are actually pretty cool, and some bosses are more intricate than others, but none as intricate as the fight versus Livewire. There's just so many steps that you have to figure out to deal any significant damage to this lady. Plus she gets tougher and tougher as the fight goes on. She was a bit annoying. Maybe not time limit annoying, but still pretty annoying. But after you defeat her, the rest are really a breeze. The ending of the game really teases Darkseid planning something big, like big enough to justify some sort of sequel, but there isn't one. In 2003, a year later from its original release for the PS2, it was ported to the GameCube alongside Superman Countdown to Apokolips, releasing for the Game Boy Advance, which serves as a prequel to Shadow of Apokolips, where Darkseid's minions try to take down Superman, Kalibak kidnaps Lois, and a few other villains bust out of prison. This game wasn't really received too well because of its repetitive gameplay, but it was actually praised for its graphics at the time. I honestly wasn't expecting too much from Superman Shadow of Apokolips. Is this game unplayable? No. It even has a couple decent ideas, but they're just executed a bit poorly. But great art style and even better voice acting did most of the heavy lifting. Is it a must play? Probably not, but sadly it might be the best Superman game we have. Next up, Superman Returns. I had never seen the movie before and I recently watched it for the first time, and boy, I just hope that this game is better than that. Made by EA before they figured out how to monetize booster packs to steal your money, in partnership with Warner Brothers before they failed at games as a service to try and steal your money. These two teamed up and created something so empty and whack you would think they actually did it today. This game very sloppily follows the story of the movie. Some cutscenes repeat line for line, but the same silly story from the movie is here. Superman has been gone for 5 years. Lois Lane is bummed that he left. She wrote a toxic ass ex-girlfriend article flaming the shit out of Superman, which was apparently so good that she won a Pulitzer for it. Lex Luthor somehow finds the Fortress of Solitude, steals crystals from it to create Lextopia, because crystal plus water equals land for some reason. But Superman comes back to stop him, and that's pretty much the story. Oddly enough, I felt that the game does a better job in explaining things than the movie, because we actually get to see him play where he was for those 5 years. Answer being, fighting huge ass aliens. Character models aren't too bad. They lie, but they aren't bad. He definitely does not look like that in the movie. But as far as their faces go, they do look like the actors, and kudos to them for reprising their roles. Some lines are so similar, I thought that they were ripped straight off the movie, but even Spacey's performance felt a little less campy than it did in the movie. Maybe because it's cartoony and CGI, it fits somehow, I'm not sure. Brandon Routh got the bad end of the stick from the aftermath of this movie, but I don't actually think he's a horrible Superman. I mean, I already think Superman as a whole is a little bit dull, but that's not his fault. If I'm honest, really the worst part of his Superman are his stupid ass contact lenses. And in the game, I think he did an alright job, at least in the cutscenes.
I'm not playing your ridiculous games.
Outside of the cutscenes, he kind of just says random things while you're flying around and kicking ass. And when he does, he kind of sounds like one of those AI voices that you find on TikTok.
I need a different strategy.
Other than the character models, graphically this game is not great. There are cars and people walking around, and yet Metropolis feels very dead. And this is felt even more the higher you fly up. I know it's 2006, but games even before this looked way better. Yeah, I know it's a movie tie-in and their production was probably hell, especially knowing that the game came out with the DVD release instead of when it hit theaters. But still, whether or not it had problems or not, it really doesn't change the fact that the game does not look great. Clearly, all the graphical effort went towards the 360 version. And that might have been where the entirety of the effort went, because it sure as hell didn't go towards any of the gameplay. I found more variety in the goddamn Polar Express game than I did here. So you start out with your papa who's talking to you somehow, I guess because crystals, and he's showing you the ropes, and he's kind of like your guiding voice throughout the whole thing.
You'll have the ability to defy gravity.
But the first thing you do is fly. And I will say, flying is pretty good. It's not bad. The sense of speed is there. It actually feels kind of cool. Flying is dope. He can hover, he can go super speed, and I really like to take off from the ground. There's two different types. He can just go like a little small one or blast all the way up in the sky, and it feels legit. Combat though is not the best. You use button inputs to throw combinations of attacks. You can also grab and throw things. He can dodge, which actually works fine. But the main things are what come out of Superman's face. Lasers, super breath, and freeze breath. So lasers, well, they burn because they're lasers. The super breath, you can push things around, and freeze, well, freezes. I don't know why I felt the need to explain that. You're not stupid, I'm sorry. And each of these have a mega version of that attack. Some enemies are more affected by the laser than the ice. Others, it's better to freeze them completely so you can attack them better. So you will be switching between the attacks, but even with some of the enemies showing a little bit of weakness, there's still not a whole lot to the combat. You can still beat their ass by just spamming a button. And whenever he's like, oh no, my attacks don't affect them, that's just code for throw shit at him. You earn XP by completing missions and you level up, but the game upgrades on its own. There's even like a little menu where it looks like you would be choosing things to upgrade, but the game just decides for you and does it on its own. Like, oh, now your lasers are more effective. or now you have a little bit more stamina, which is what that red bar is. You know, the attacks and things that come out of your face have a stamina for some reason. But my point is that it upgrades on its own. You really are at the mercy of the game. Like, who are you, game? You ain't my daddy. Let me upgrade and pick my shit. But the worst part of the game by far are the missions. It's the same missions over and over and over and over and over and over. There's a horrible little map you can look at. The map is not flat, which I thought was kind of cool at first. But for some reason, you can't zoom out all the way. So even looking at the map is kind of goofy. There are no icons on it except for Superman. You really can't mark anything on it. Literally all you can do is just look at the thing. So EA made a open world Superman game, but took away all the freedom that comes with an open world game. You can't choose anything. You can't even choose missions. Missions just appear. You're flying around minding your Superman business and an icon pops up. So you rush towards it and you will come across one of the same type of missions, which are mostly beat that ass. Beat all the enemies on the ground, beat the enemies from the sky, beat the fast enemies, beat the slow enemies, chase down the enemies and beat them. Every single mission is just different forms of defeat all the enemies. And sometimes you have to give blowjobs to buildings because they're on fire. So you do enough of these missions and you get a cutscene progressing the story, or the same cutscene of a newspaper being put out with a new headline of a new villain entering the fray. But then you put right back flying around doing the same shit. Sometimes there are actually story missions, I guess if you want to call that, where you have to destroy meteors or save zeppelins. But these missions go on for way longer than they should and overstay their welcome really quick. There are bosses, but you have to battle each of them 3 different times, and it's literally the same fight over and over again. Nothing really changes from fight to fight, except for Metallo. One of his fights he gets all big, but that's really it. The rest of them are very basic battles that you did twice already. And these fights are a bit weird too, because their life bar can drain all the way down, but then just for funsies, just build back up. This really feels like it was just an excuse to extend the gameplay, but for no reason. Each villain has their type of lackeys, and they just get added to the painfully repetitive game loop. They're dragons, mechs, and something else, I forget. I think some kind of robots also, I think, or something. I don't know. It really doesn't matter. It's all super lame. And before you start yelling at me down in the comments, oh, you should have played the 360 version. Did you read the title? It says PS2. Not the one PS2 game and the other 360 game. It says PS2. Besides, other than the graphics, the rest of the game looks pretty much the same. I saw gameplay and they were doing the same shit. There are no movie-specific scenes you create, like saving the plane or snatching it out of the sky or nothing like that. Nothing that Superman does in the movie you really do in the game. The enemies they pipe in I thought were actually kind of cool. You know, Metallo, Bizarro, Mongul, and this Mixelplick guy or whatever his name is.
After me, bright boy. It's Mix. Yes. Spit. Lick.
He wants you to save cats that are around the city for some reason, which was a hard pass for me, dog. I ain't flying around Metropolis just looking for pussy. I got shit to do, man. So for as much as this game sucks, and boy does it really, there was one idea that I actually really did like for a Superman game. That is that Metropolis has health. If Metropolis takes too much damage, you have to restart the chapter. Whatever the hell that means. I don't know if that means the immediate mission or that means the entirety of this whole chapter that has names. But I like that idea. Metropolis having a health bar, because Superman shouldn't be able to die or even get hurt, if I'm really honest. And he doesn't die. He kind of just falls back and you have to like button mash to like wake up. But he doesn't die. So hurting the city makes a whole lot of sense, and it forces you to be cautious of not making too much of a mess while trying to stop these enemies. And if you do make a mess, civilians get injured and you have to take them to the ambulance.
Where the ambulance? Why the man body still right there? Ain't supposed to be laying there. Call the damn ambulance!
Unfortunately, like the rest of the missions, this too is tedious and a bit of annoying. But when you do manage to take them to the ambulance, the city heals a bit. Of course, only after people clap for Superman, no matter how big of a mess he actually made. Oh, and of course you can't forget about his 360-degree pose that he does every single time. So So saving civilians is one of the only ways you can heal the city, along with completing the missions themselves. But of course, this too is broken, because sometimes there's no ambulance to be found. So you just have to dip, leaving just injured bodies on the floor, or worse, drop the one that you're carrying because you already flew up in the air. Jokes aside, I really did dig this Metropolis having a health bar thing. It makes sense to me. I wouldn't mind expanding a bit more if there were to be a new game. You know, having to juggle all this really feels like something Superman actually has to deal with. But here it just quickly becomes tedious and repetitive due to the stupid mission structure. I did get a glitch because of course I did. So Lil Metallo wouldn't attack me, and he had this kryptonite shield that wouldn't go away, so I couldn't attack him, and he would just slowly walk in one direction. There's no autosave, there's no restart to the mission. I could reload my last save, but that would also mean that I would have to lose an hour and a half of progress, and f that. But thanks to this Metropolis health bar, I did have one option left, and that was to go full Homelander and murder everyone. And I did. And I liked it. A lot. EA must have some sense of fun back then, because hidden in the city are these mayhem missions where you get to use Bizarro and are able to fly around the city and try and make as much mess as possible. These could have also been marked on the map, but I guess that's too much to ask, I guess. But at least you can have fun making a mess. If you manage to slog through this game, once you beat it, you're actually just thrown back into the world where you can just do the same missions for eternity, which is very stupid. But what might have been even stupider is the ending of the game itself. The best thing about the ending is that it means that it's over. The worst part of it was the mission itself. I don't even want to call it a boss fight, but you fight tornadoes. First you have to push them away from the city because they're causing a bunch of damage. Then you go inside of a big one and you have to shoot lasers when it's cold and the ice breath when it's hot. Then you do that enough times and you beat it, and a cutscene plays out the end of the movie and it's done. You don't fight Lex, you don't save Lois. Cyclops ain't even in here, man. What the f? It really stinks like a wet fart in the shower, man. What's going on?
Steel would have given his life, and nearly did, to save us.
Your Honor, I think it's clear that with the evidence that I've presented today, we desperately need a new Superman game. It's tough to live in a gaming world where Superman Shadows of the Apokolips is by far the best Superman video game we have. Maybe if Warner Bros. Games would have not put so much time on a weak-ass game as a service game nobody wanted, or canceling potential great ideas, we would have had an interesting Superman game on our hands by now. But I guess until that day comes, we always have Superman Shadow of Apokolips to hold us over. Sorry, I had to get one more in. But let me know your thoughts on these two Superman games. Maybe have more nostalgia for even older games. Are those even worth trying today? Let me know down in the comments along with any other Superman thoughts you might have. And while you're down there, if you enjoyed this video, please drop a like and consider subscribing to the channel. Thank you guys so much. Remember to always and forever, you do you.
Manual override complete. Self-destruct canceled. Have a nice day.